I have something for you, something what you most wanted. You will keep asking how we can deploy these services into production, how we can automate this. Today, I'm going to demonstrate that to you, right? How we can integrate continuous integration or continuous delivery into our project. For example, you just push your code into GitHub repository, master branch, then Ansible will take it automatically and build it and create the Dockers and deploy the Dockers into production servers, right? For understand this piece, you need Ansible and you need Docker. I mean, there are plenty of other frameworks we can use for this, like a Jenkins and Puppet and all those Bamboo, all those things. But I'm just going to demonstrate this with the Ansible so you can get the concept, right? What I want you to gather the concept and also the security measurement and the precautions we need to take when we implement something like this. Okay, so this is my scenario. I have Ansible host and also I have a application server which is we are going to build through the Ansible, right? To make this is simple, I don't want to use a separate deployment server. Instead of that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to build my app, my microservice and the Dockers inside the application server itself, right? But when you go to the real production, I'll tell you what to change. It's just very simple thing. You just need to introduce new more server code to production server. But to keep this video short, I'm not going to make such complicate this. But I promise you're going to learn how to do that little change. Okay, right? So you need to help me in a few things. Today we have a lot more to do, right? Because we need to complete automate this. So we have a lot of work to do. So to keep this video short, I'm not going to explain playbooks and those Ansible commands and SSH and all those things, how those works. But you have a separate videos for this in my channel, right? We need to Docker. So you have a separate playlist called Docker. You can go that and learn the Dockers, what you need for this today course, right? And also you have a separate video about the SSH that will teach you everything what you know about SSH, right? So because we are going to use SSH today for this assignment. And also for Ansible, you have 4 other videos. You need to go through and understand what is the Ansible, what is the concept behind this, how the connection work, what the playbook, what are the commands, how those works, right? If you have those understanding, end of this video, you will learn everything what you need to do, automate your build process. You just run the command, you just push your code changes into GitHub. In a 1 minute later, that will be in the production or the QA or the staging server, whatever you define, right? So this will be really cool. Okay, for this one, I'm going to use one repository here, right, called this sample microservice repository in here. I'm not going to delete that, so this will remain here, right? And also I'm going to use the same instance what we did last time, right? So if you come here, we have Ansible, let's say version. We install the latest version 2.9 to the date, which is the latest version, so you're good to go with this, right? So if you remember last time, what we did is we create this playbook. This playbook will install the Java and the Maven and also the Docker into my our application server, right? Oops, so sorry, I did something wrong. Okay. Okay, so right, so first I'm going to make sure this is still working. Playbook, I host and okay. So there will be warnings, so please ignore that. It's not a big deal, right? Okay, so this should work. Yeah, because last time we executed this, so that means we installed everything. So that's why I just said okay. Okay, good. So today I'm not going to like do one by one type this playbook, because you already know how this playbook works and syntaxes and everything I taught you in the last video. So I'm not going to go through that. Instead of that, I created the playbook itself in my machine, right? So I'm going to use this playbook, right? But I'm going to explain what this playbook does, right? So this is the same playbook what we used last time, but this is the new playbook, right? So I'm going to split this process for two parts. First part will install the necessary package and softwares into my remote node, which is application server, and this one is the one like keep executing on each change what you make on the GitHub, right? So what this does is it will run on the web group, right? So run as EC2 user, but this time I didn't set the become equal true. That means I don't need the sudo access for this one. So this is, I use two variables here. One is a repo which is Krish / sample microservice, right? So because I need to tell Ansible from where it can fetch the my code, right? So it's sample microservice, and also I'm telling where to pull this, right, and to which directory it should be pulled, right? So it should be the clone directory, right? So in here in this project I create the Docker file, right? If you don't know how the Docker works, there is a playlist called Docker in my this channel, so you have to go through that. So that will teach you what the meaning of this Docker file. Okay, right. So now go back here. So now I have three different tasks mentioned here. One is to get the pull the source code from the GitHub, and the second one is build that with the Maven, and third one is create a Docker image, and fourth one is run the run Docker container, right? So here you can see this part is I explained. So first task is the get update from GitHub, right? So what that will do is it will go to GitHub using SSH, right? SSH connection. I'll explain this, and then it's going to pull the code into the directory, right? Directory given here. First time, since there is no Git directory here, it will clone it, and subsequent time it will pull the changes. So this one I just use the shell here, right? So you can use any modules if you want, right? So build with the Maven, you just know ambient clean install, so that no need to explain. So this one is the Docker image and the container. Keep in mind you need to have a good understanding about the Docker in order to do this exercise. So please go back to my channel, and there is a Docker playlist, and there is a one video on here, Docker fundamentals and everything, that will explain to you. So that will explain what the Docker image and the Docker container, right? So this is an image, so I am giving a sample service. I tell build pull equal no, that means I don't want to pull anything from the Docker registry, I just need to build it. So where is my Docker file? So this is one, so this is the same directory, right? I can even replace this with the clone directory variable if I want. And source is build, right? So I'm going to tell build this is locally. For source mean let's say first time you build this, there is a no image called sample service, but the next time you change something in the GitHub, now when it's going to build, this will see there is an image called sample service, so it won't build. So for source yes, what it does is it will remove that image from the local Docker registry, local one, and then it will create a new image using the changes. So that's what the force is. And a state present, you already know what it means. And create container. Now we create the image. So now image is just a image, so we need to make it as a container in order to run this. So for that I am going to use the Docker container module. Here I use the Docker image module. So here the name, right, name is sample, that means the running name, runtime name. I want to create this container from this sample service image which I created here, and then auto remove is yes. Auto remove is this what it does. So first time you run this, it's good to go. So next time if you change something in the GitHub, when you pull it, when you create the Docker image, when you're trying to run, there is a service already running from the name sample, right? So auto remove means we tell here you remove this, you stop this container and remove this container and run the new one, right? The port mean my service run on port 8191, so I'm telling, so local port 80 bind to 8191, right? So this is simple. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this, right, and I go back to my server here. Okay, it's good, and I'm going to use build dot YML. Oops, I missed one letter, but I'll fix it. So I'm going to paste it here, right? So if you want to know how to create from this playbook from the scratch, you watch the last video. So I'm going to just rename this build. It should be build. Okay, good to go. So now this playbook supposed to connect to GitHub, but you know, to connect to GitHub you need username and password and so on and so forth, right? Even just assume this is a private repository, right? So we need to do this to connect with the SSH key, because there is no one to enter the password when you automate this, and you don't want to save your password in any other deployment machine, right? So how you can do this? And if you don't know how this is, I'm going to just do this right now, right? If you don't know how this SSH works and what is the public key and what is the private key, where to put the private key, where to put the public key, which directory and how, just please go and watch there is a video published like a few days back called SSH. You should know everything about the SSH. So go and watch that video, right? I'm going to do that just now. So SSH keygen. So I'm not going to add anything here. Yes, okay, I got the key. So now what I want to do is this created two keys, right? Public key and the private key. And again, go and watch that video if you don't understand. So I need to copy the public key, right? There's a multiple ways to copy that, but I'm going to copy in a very basic way, right? So I'm going to copy in a very basic way here, from here to here. Oops. So this is my public key, right? So now what I need to do is I need to go to my GitHub account and I need to add this. This is how you can add this. Go to settings. Right, so here you have a menu called SSH and GPG key. So here you have SSH key section. You can go here and you can give ansible key, right? So you just paste it here, right, at SSH key. Okay, so now you got the key. Okay, so now yeah, GitHub is telling me like someone added the key or it's me, so nothing to worry about it. So now technically this can connect, right? So now we have a public key in the GitHub, but still you don't have a private key in the nodes, right? Because, and this is the Ansible host, but actually this code is not coming here. This code is come to the other nodes, right? My application server, this is Ansible server, application server, right? But I have a keys in my this node, Ansible server. I don't have any keys in the my application server node, right? Which is this code going to come. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to relay this SSH keys what I have here into my remote node, right? So how I can do this? I create a file called ansible.cfg here, right? So what this file does is this tells you default transport is SSH, and also SSH arg is forward agent is yes. That means whatever the keys I have here, it will forward to my remote node, right? So now I need to set the I need to set the my SSH agent. So SSH agent I'm going to set as bash and SSH add, all these things, and what it mean by this is explained on previous videos. Okay, so now I have added my identity to here, right? But if even though I run this now, this will fail, right? But I'll tell you why it is failing, and I'll help you to get that done. Right? So this will give me an error when you're trying to connect the SSH. I'll explain why, right? And I'll tell you how to fix that. See here, it says your host key verification failed, right? Host key verification failed mean, again this explained in the SSH video, because GitHub key is not in the non-host file, right? So here I'm going to do little different thing to this. I'm going to add this to my setup playbook, because this is not something we need to do every time. This is something one time task we need to do. I'm going to add this one here, right? I'm going to add this one here. Okay, So, what this simply does is this will get the RSA keys from a GitHub and add that into known host file. So, in that case host key verification will not fail, right. So, since we came here, I am going to do one more thing. In the last video, even though we add this, we create the Docker and started the Docker, we did not add the EC2 user into the Docker group, right. So, as a result, you need to give sudo in each Docker command, right. So, I do not want to do that, right. So, I do not have a sudo access to my build playbook. So, I do not want to do that. So, therefore, I am going to add this user into my EC2 user into the Docker group, right. When you have a EC2 user in the Docker group, you do not have to give the sudo keyword every time, right. Should be good now. Okay. So, now this will add the keys into non-host file. Yes, right. So, now that problem is solved. Okay, now that problem is solved. So, let us go back and execute the build file again. Okay, so now you can see get the update from the Git, it worked fine. So, that means it cloned the repository, so that means SSH worked well. Okay. So, it says it cannot build the Docker because Docker SDK for Python. Okay. So, it says we need to install this one, right, pip install Docker into my remote host. So, what I am going to do is again I am going to give that responsibility into my this one, because this is something again one time task. So, I am going to do this with shell. So, that will be super easy, pip install Docker. Okay. So, let us try to execute the main module again. Okay. So, it worked. So, now let us try to execute my build module again. Okay, looks like it built the image and also it create the container, right. So, technically if we go here and if we get this ansible application server public IP, give me app hello world. Oops, it didn't work. Okay, sorry, I made a spelling mistake. Let's fix this quickly. Yeah, it worked, right. So, it worked. So, that means my code came from the GitHub and built from Ansible and create the Docker from the Ansible and also create the Docker container from the Ansible and started it, right. Everything it works smoothly. So, now what we need to do is we need to make sure this happen automatically whenever someone push it. Okay. So, before we go here, you need to understand few concepts, right. This is very important. So, understand this very clearly. Number one, when you push something into GitHub, that should be notified. For that, we can use something called webhook, right. So, GitHub, there is a feature you can get a webhook. So, what that webhook does is when you push something into GitHub, so whatever the changes you push, GitHub can notify to some other service, right. For now, you can get a webhook, that's fine. So, now there has to be someone who to get that notification. For that, we can get a web server, right. But if you expose Ansible directly to get this, this has a huge security risk. The reason is from Ansible, you connect to all other nodes, right. Let's say you have 100 or 200 nodes in your network. From Ansible, you can connect to all those 200 nodes. So now if you allow someone in the internet to talk to an Ansible, so it has a security risk. The risk is because if someone compromises this, your entire network get compromised. So to do that, but still we have to have web server. So what we are going to do is we are going to use a reverse proxy, right? So your network can have a public network and the private network, right? The public subnet and the private subnet. Public subnet will have internet and the private subnet will not have internet, right? So your Ansible will stay on the private subnet. So what you can do is you can create a reverse proxy in a public subnet, then GitHub will push this hook, push this request into a public subnet reverse proxy. The reverse proxy will take it and forward into web server in a private network, right? So that web server can execute the Ansible, right? So this is just a principle. So you can use this any way you want. Let's say apart from the GitHub, you have a Jenkins server, right? So now you need to, when you click the Jenkins button in the Jenkins, so you need to execute the Ansible. So how you can do that? So Jenkins will send the request to reverse proxy, right? So reverse proxy will take it and forward into local Ansible host, and then Ansible host script will execute. Why? Because Ansible is something executed in the shell. This is what you need to understand. Ansible, this is something executed in the shell. So to execute the shell from the web interface, we can use exec function in the JavaScript, right? So if you give that, anything what you go into the exec will execute. So this has a security risk, right? So that's why you should not expose this into public internet, because if some hacker come and execute some miscellaneous and dangerous script through someone somehow manage to inject into this exec, so your entire network get compromised and get attacked, right? So to avoid that, it's always better to use a reverse proxy. So in that case, you can keep your internal backend servers like these Ansibles and every backend servers isolated from internet, right? So in this example, what I'm going to do is I can use nginx for both, right? But to give some little more exposure, I'm going to use nginx as a reverse proxy and Express as a web server which execute the Ansible, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new directory as a web, right? So I have web directory, so I'm going to go into web directory, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to first install nginx, and I'm going to use yarn. Let's say the yarn is there. Yeah, yarn is there. So I'm going to use a yarn to install the express.js. And so yarn is nothing but just other package manager like npm. If you want npm, you can use npm. I just happen to use a yarn, right? And yeah, it created that. And then I'm going to add the global as an express generator. And again, if you want to use npm, just go ahead and do that. There's no problem. So I'm going to create a directory in the for web server. I'm going to create that in the var. I'm going to use the permission to this user. Okay, so I'm going to go to var directory now. I'm going to create an express server here. So I'm going to ask to create the express server in here. Oops, express command is not found. So that means probably this can happen when you add the yarn global and it doesn't include to the path. So we probably need to export this. Okay, so let's try again. Yeah, this time it worked. Then let's create a basic yarn application. So I'm going to create a webhook manually from the UI, but in case if you want to use you do it in a programmatically, you can do it in this way. You can use yarn add octokit. So this is the REST client for JIT, but I'm not going to use it. But if you want, you can add the webhook programmatically even. Okay, it's fine. So now I need to configure nginx as a reverse proxy. How I'm going to do this? To vim etc nginx nginx.conf, right? So in this file, I mean, you can use a separate file if you want, but I'm going to use the same way, right? It's listening on the port 80, but here on the location I'm going to give something like let's say JIT, right? So here if someone is come to JIT location, I'm asking to use this as a reverse proxy. So proxy pass into HTTP localhost, let's say port 3000. You can use a 3000 if you want, but most of JavaScript are going to use a 3000, so I'm going to use 3001. So let's restart the nginx. Probably I did something wrong. Oops, I think for some reason I don't know why I did that. Okay, so it should be good. Yeah, it's restarted. So now my proxy configuration done. I need to create a webhook. So how I can do this? I need to go here and get my Ansible servers public IP, because that is the way I have reverse proxy installed, right? And go to GitHub and go to your repository, whatever the repository you want to configure this webhook. So in my case, microservice sample. And when you go to settings, so you have here webhooks, right? So you can add the webhook. So my webhook would be HTTP, so my IP, right, and JIT, right? So that is the way I configure the reverse proxy, right? If you give a different as a reverse proxy handler, it should be comes here. If you didn't give anything, they should be like this without anything. Since I gave a JIT in the nginx reverse proxy, I'm going to use this. So here I'm going to use as application JSON. This one you can give something if you want. And just push even, make sure it's active, right? So keep in mind to save the time, I do not going to configure this as HTTPS. When you do the real production, make sure your nginx reverse proxy has HTTPS, right? So when it has HTTPS, the reverse proxy configuration would be little different, because you need to add the certificates and the keys. So but you can find that in Google, right? So it doesn't matter. I think I all set. So now what I need to do is I need to set the express to get this request, right? So and I'm going to use the PM2 to make sure this is run as a background process. So I'm going to add, so then I can nicely do this as a background process. Oops, it has errors. Incompatible module. For now I'm going to use a Signo engine. Okay, so it's all good. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start this. Okay, so when you start, it give you this command to execute. You need to make sure you copy this and execute. Okay, it's good. And now what you need to do is you need to define the port here. So I gave the port as a 3001, right? If you give a different one, you need to use that here. Right, so I added the watch here because when you add the watch, even though some file change, the process will reload it. So now PM2 I can save. Now my PM2 is good. So now finally what we need to do is we need to now we have set up webhook. So if you push something, it will go and hit the webhook. Webhook will deliver that into your nginx reverse proxy. So now nginx is configured to come into the express. So now what we need to do is we need to set up the express server to take that take that incoming request and see whether it's a master branch and deliver that into your ansible, right? So for that what I'm going to do is I'm going to use server route index.js. So it's better, like if you mess up with this, let's copy this. It's always better before you modify file. It's good practice to do, right? So right, so what I'm going to do is I don't want to take any get request here. Oops. Right, so I don't want to get any get request, but I want to take the post request. So this is the final file. Probably I will remove the typing part when I'm edit, because it doesn't make any sense you just watching here this I'm typing. So this is the file, and what I do here, I just take the red message variable and just say begin here, and then if the branch is not master branch, I just set the value into this is not a master branch and return it. And then if it is a master branch, I come here and I just say start execute and then execute my command. So this is the what I've told you. Exec is a very dangerous thing to do if you open to the public internet, because then anyone can intercept this traffic, right? So when in my reverse proxy, I didn't add any validation or anything, right? But when you go to the real production, you can do the filters and everything before you forward the traffic here. Right, I just set the basic setup to give an idea. So here what you do is ansible config. So you pass the configuration file, right, and then ansible playbook, you pass the host file and the YAML your playbook, right, as usual. And now what I'm going to do is, so this comes here, right. So I'm going to get a new terminal here, and then just to see change something and push to make sure we didn't miss anything. Right, so here I'm going to change something like I'm going to add ansible here, ansible and spring boot 2. So let's do this. I'm going to push here, so still I can see this is my usual message, right, because probably didn't come here yet. If you go here webhook, I can see what happened to my last webhook. It says it didn't deliver. To see whether my IP address is right. Oh, sorry, I think I configured the wrong IP address. So this should be my IP address, because it should be Ansible server IP address. So let me to edit this and this one and update the webhook. Let's do a very simple change. Push this. Okay. So let's go back here and see what happened this time. Oh, it's fairly still. Phase 02 bad gateway. There can be one reason for this. So let's go and check my Ansible reverse proxy configuration. And here what I did is right. Probably I can try something. I can remove the file from here. I can remove this file just to make sure this doesn't cause any problems. Okay. And ask this to resend this. You can say redeliver. Here we'll see what it does. Still it says error, but when something like this happen, there is an easy way to check this. So what we can do is we can go here and get this entire payload, and we can send the post request manually, right? So this is the easy way to check the hook, but it's good that these errors happen for us, because then you will know something more. So let's get our insomnia and let's put this here, and then what is the URL we calling? This one, right? So it's a post request. So we'll see what we get. Yeah, we get the bad gateway. So it comes from the nginx. So that tells us the request goes up to the nginx, but nginx cannot deliver that into our express server, right? So probably we'll see whether express server is running. So we can see PMP list. Oops, express server is not running. Okay. So express server is not running mean there has to be something wrong. So we'll see PM2 log. So cannot find the module. So this is how you check it, right? So you have GitHub pull is name, and the name is here. Cannot find the module HTTP errors. So that means Abj's, oops, there is no node modules here. So where we are? So we are in a var web server, but there is no node modules here. Okay, that's weird. So let's go one step back. Oops, okay. Okay, I know why the problem. Looks like I have sent the execute the yarn command in the wrong place, right? So I should be execute the yarn command in the server. So the easiest way is let's clear out this everything. That will fix our problem. So let's kill the PM2 first. Okay. So we are var web. So let's remove everything, rm minus rf. Okay. So now we don't have anything. Let's generate express again. So this time the command will work, because I think what happens is that time command didn't work, then I had to export the path, then I think I was confused, I execute the command in the wrong place. So express var web server. I have to go to server and then execute the yarn command. Okay, so now it's fetching modules. Okay, we'll see. So now you have a node modules. So let's say whether you have all node modules. Yeah, looks like we got the module. So let's get the PM2 back. PM2 startup. Okay, so I have to execute this command. Okay, so now let's execute the port command. Okay, so we have the command. Let's execute this. Okay, so PM2 list. Yeah, now it's keep online. So now what we need to do is we need to save this. PM2 save. Okay, so save will protect for the restart. Let's try again. Yeah, this time it worked. Actually, it's good that you got an error, so you got to know that how you can debug the webhook by getting the payload and sending it to there. And when something happen like this, don't get panic, right? Go step by step. So how we check that? So we check whether it's come into the up to the nginx. So that means it get the nginx. It's a bad gateway. That means nginx doesn't know how to deliver that. Because if it doesn't hit by nginx, then the problem is different. Then the problem is in nginx. So now it hit to the nginx. Nginx says bad gateway. That means nginx doesn't know how to deliver this. So then we go there and we check the express.js is not running. So then when why it's running, we check the log file, it says module is not there. So module should be there in the node module directory. When you go there, node module directory was not there. So then we realize, okay, something messed up. We cleared everything and we got it back. So now technically let's go back here. Okay, so and so what we need to do is we need to create this file. Okay, so this time I'm not going to create a copy here. So I have my file back, and I don't want to explain this again because I already explained this to you. And since we had the watch flag, so technically this is supposed to get it back. Let's go here and do other push. It pushed again. So looks like this time it worked, right? So now let's come here and see. Still it's probably it will take some time, right? Welcome to microservice with Spring Boot. If we get, without doing anything, if we get here, we got that. So during even edit, I'm not going to remove anything what went wrong, because when you do these things also, I'm pretty sure you will get this type of problems, because it won't work as one time, right? So then these things will help you to understand. Okay, so now you would say it got with the ansible, right? So let's do one more time, one more change to make sure, since we went through a lot of things, right? So let's do something significant here. It pushed. So now GitHub will send this hook into this webhook. It will trigger our reverse proxy, which is nginx, right? So now when you go to the nginx will forward this traffic into express server, right? And the express server, we have a command to execute our ansible, right? So now you can see it's success, right? And you can see here, you can go and debug here, right? You can go here and you can see the response, and even you will see response begin start execute, right? So this come from our script here, right? So it says it go to the begin and it start to execute, right? So this is what we get, right? Begin start execute. So once it start execute, it will execute this here. What the execution does is it get the ansible config and it run the ansible playbook command, right? So now let's go back and see whether our changes are deployed. So this has to come something like CI/CD testing thing. So yeah, this is test to check automated build, right? So now pretty sure everything is work fine. So now here onwards, what you just need to do is you just do your development branch command, and then you merge into the master. The moment you push into the master, Ansible will pull it and do it. So keep in mind, we don't have to use, it is not mandatory to use nginx reverse proxy. You can directly hook this to your express server, but you should not do that. And the security purpose in a production, you don't ever do that. Right. So now what happened? Now what we need to do is more here, which I'm not going to do is. So like for example, if you need other thing like a Jenkins, right? If you don't use only Ansible, if you have a Jenkins, let's say Jenkins may pull this code and build and do everything. So in that case, you may need to trigger your Ansible from the Jenkins, right? So what you need to do is you can put nginx server front, and then you can like this. You can call nginx server from there, and then nginx will be in the public internet network. Then nginx will call expresso. You can use http or any nginx or any other server. It is not must to use express, right? You can replace any of these things. I just use the express, then I can add that to PM2, and I can that kind of make it automate, right? Even now, like even I come in 7 days later, PM will take care of running my express server and everything. So that's what I did. So now we have a Ansible server and we have a build server, right? So in this case, we use the build server in order to run the Dockers as well. So in a real production, what there is one more step you need to do. You may have one more production server running or staging server, QA or whatever. What you need to do is in this Docker build, in this file, right? So if you go here to Ansible, right, so in this build YAML, right, so now instead of you running the container, what you need to do is you need to push this to Docker Hub, right, and you can invoke other reverse proxy or something on the production server, and that will cause to pull and run this Docker, right. Actually you can do whatever the way you want depending on your architecture. So what I'm saying, probably you may not like to build on the production server, then you can customize in this way. This is just a workflow, okay, right. So we did kind of a most requested thing, we most request is practical demonstration. So now you know how to develop a microservice and how automatically push this to production. Kind of everything is covered. There is a few other things pending to cover in the microservices, because we need to do application gateway, and we need to do this distributed tracing and a few other things. So I'm going to cover those as well. It's not that I gave up those, but like a lot of people asking me how we can like do this real thing. For example, for run this to GitHub to invoke your server, you have to have a real IP, right? In that case, if you're having a local setup, it may not possible to do it, right? So next I'm going to teach you a little bit about how you can set up a basic AWS instance for free for 1 year. In that case, like you can do all those practical on there, right, with exactly as I do. So then I'm going to teach you a little bit more about the Docker, right, and meantime I'm going to cover the microservice as well, right. Lot to do, and stay tuned, subscribe, make sure you subscribe, and make sure you share this video, right, because more people get shared, then more people get contributed to the algorithm, take this content to top, and then a lot of people can learn, right. So as you learn, help others also to learn. Then stay safe, take care, we'll see you soon in the next video.